In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. Okay. Okay. The magnificence of what we are capable of. I find it fascinating and simultaneously divine that there's 8 billion humans positioned on a planet, and the way that they are experiencing their existence on this planet can make all the difference. To wonder truly about the greatness of a species. Really, I just find myself in a very interesting moment, and I honestly find it as a blessing that I can talk about this stuff while I'm existing and alive. What is going on here on this planet is very fascinating. It is way more complex than we're conditioned to believe. It's a completely different game than what human civilization prepares us for. What is going on here is the divinity of a process, of a moment. There is an event taking place in this world that humans call their home, that it surpasses human frameworks and introduces like a context where the human being is not the main event. That means I'm someone who's been alive 33 years on this planet. I'm a human being in history. There has been countless different kinds of human beings that have opened their eyes and they have done stuff, and there are right now 8 billion human beings who are just doing whatever they're doing, right? And I find it that it's not a matter of I'm giving this talk just for the viewers. It's not about I'm just giving this talk so for the future generations, right? As if your far sight is for the far seeing. I want to speak about the magnificence of what we are capable of, and the main story, what we're dealing with, right? That means it's like if children wanted to know what's beyond their, or let me say it this way. I am, even though I'm not living in that era, but I am choosing to speak to you as if someone who treats this reality as a simulation. Okay? Now, you may be like, what do you mean simulation? I'm touching the table. I exist. I'm like, yes, existence on its own is here, but what existence means is simulated. And existence itself, from a macro aerial view, is simulated. That means it's like things are like this for a certain time, in the same way a human being goes through a lifetime, experiencing different senses of self. Similarly, we're looking at different senses of self of the species. We're wondering about the collective presence of humanity and how intelligent and organized is it actually. I have come to the understanding that the limits of oneself are the limits of what concepts they treat as real. It's like a strange situation, to be honest. You have this organism here in a world, it has no clue what the totality of the world is, right? So its response to the endless unknown was to, in some sense, contain it. And so our ancestors that feared the dark, feared the unknown, and what they did is they held on to the light they could find. Pretty much our species reacted to the massive unknown realization of reality's presence through a storification. Right now, every person you see, they're a character in their own story. Now, human beings can unite and it could be part of a greater story. I think the greatest story is the advancement of civilization. I can't fathom a greater story for humans. And to advance civilization, one must come to terms with the exact reality they're in and the most advanced power accessible in that reality. That means, like, everything is powered. That's a clue. Everything has energy. Even right now, as a being, I am being energy. I am being an energy contained in the human body. And I ask myself, where do I get the energy, or where do I get the inspiration to have my soul animate in the unique way that it is? It is a matter of, I guess it's a talent thing. If you have a talent of not being a self in the moment, you get to see the moment move before you do. And when you see the moment move before you do, it's as if patience was another view. I guess on some level, these recent lectures are kind of me being like, guys, every human brain is like reformulating reality in its own way. And as one human being on this earth, I have the question of what is the original value system of reality. You see, I have found a dilemma when it comes to giving meaning to reality, right? And reality, more than it being an actuality, it's like verb like in the sense of what is kept now is being considered as real, right? Like, I don't consider people in the past as real, right? Because they're not existing in reality right now, right? But the idea of them and their character seems to surpass that. It's not just the echoing of the words of like a podcaster into eternity. It is in some sense the echoing of the presence that we were in the great grand event, right? So what I find that's going on is that the higher power is testing the species to see if it can unite over an agreement of attention on a moment of being that is beyond conditions of reality. You see, technically, theologically, even, everything is God's creation. For example, you have let's say, Christian, a Muslim, and a Jew, right? And let's say they're fighting, over, which person's view on truth is true. But they don't realize that all of what they're fighting over is the system admin's reality. Do you understand? It's a matter of, like, I don't know if this can be somehow made into something deeper, but what it is that I think the amnesia of the soul suggests how evil it is. Because it's a matter of communication. I found this very interesting. There was this UFC fighter, I don't know, it was on some like podcast online. And this UFC fighter said every day he would go to, like, when the school bus would come, there was this kid who would just like legit like beat him every day. Right? This guy who grew up to become like a champion UFC fighter. And one day, I don't know if the guy's bigger brother or father or something, they go and confront the kid. They go to the kid's house and they go tell the kid's father, like, your son is bullying my son or something. And in front of both of them, the father starts hitting the hit kid so savagely. And do you know what I mean? Not like that savage, but like starts hitting the kid to the degree that both the father and the kid that was bullied come back. And the guy's like, years later, I understood that's the only way that bully knew how to communicate, because that's what it felt, it misinterpreted as what communication is. Like, that's a way it saw reality expressed before. I think I think every person's subconscious is hyper genius. I think every human being is in a system, and how the system's being coordinated is beyond human will, meaning that the human can will this to happen, that to happen, but how it actually happens is with a consideration of an awareness greater than ours. And so here we are in this world. We're here now. How will the eons remember the human species? How will we see how blessed humanity was? My dear human beings, this has shifted from a person giving an organized podcast to just a soul in the world roaring at an edgeless sky. There is nothing to teach. It's an event. There is nothing you can know that can be greater than what the higher power knows. And the peak of knowledge is not the accumulation of it. It is the proximity to truth. That means, to me, when I look at this world, I'm seeing people who are like, let's say, they're inside the engine of civilization, and then I see people like, you have like billionaires, private jets and that kind of life. And then you have people who are like, whoa, whoa, whoa. All the stuff here on the planet is temporarily accessible because we're a temporary self. How should this temporary self conduct it before it functions? And what great questions, important questions about the context of reality, just great questions must be answered before action. That means anybody, like if somebody's like, yo, Mr. Within, I don't know how to think, and I'll be like, bro, it just forget thinking and just wonder about how your attention works. In the same way you figured out how to move your body and speak, in the same way you can figure out how your attention is present and where your value system is coming from. Let me give you an example. I am a human being who honestly lived a very shy life, massive introvert, intense social anxiety due to an ability of the mind to fathom probabilities that would startle me from action. But I can tell you, it's not that you grow up in life, it's that you see deeper dimensions than you saw yesterday. The human species, those who are above billionaires and trillionaires, or those who have power over manifestation, they're playing power games in manifestation. If you ever were curious about what a higher superior archetype would be, it would be those who are aware of where the divine command that moves natural law comes from. That means the greater path of the intellect is the realization that the intellect was not just the intellect. You right now are the presence of intelligence in space. You are on some level very divine. But true divinity seems to be not just knowing something exists, but it's alive. It's a living relationship. Like if you ask me as a Muslim, like, yo man, what's your relationship with the system admin like? And I'll be like, it's legit. I have been so overwhelmed by how advanced this presence is that I have instantly, my ego has accepted it's inferior, and to be honest, I'm more like a serving witness, a witness servant of the divine at this point. Do you know? Because on some level, for me, I don't know how it is. It's like I think I've been like this since a kid, where I always tell people I'm kind of like a telescope. The things in front of me I don't take very seriously, but the things I see far away are very deep and I take very seriously. That means I take the notion of a system admin seriously, but I take the notion of how manifestation occurs more of like something that's not just limited to my intelligence. It's like, what am I working here with? What am I? You know? And there's such a deep question when you wonder about what the self is. Like, I've looked into it because it was a hobby of mine to figure out where I am and what's going on. It's like anything I've done in this life, it's been with a sort of intensity of noticing, like, wait a minute, you're telling me I'm temporarily in this world and I've awakened in a system where there's coded ways of behavior, and they're telling me I'm being tested, and what is the action and what is the cost, the true cost of life. That means I can kind of sympathize with any human being on this planet ever, you know, that has walked this earth. That, yeah, man, we all feel it. We all feel like, yeah, we don't know a lot of things here. We're just a species trying to figure it out, and it's kind of like spheres of reality separating humans. If they came to me and they're like, yo, insightful podcaster, do you know? The United Nations wants to know. The United Nations wants to know what is the greatest approach and strategy of the human species. I would say it's just putting the word advanced in front of everything. You thought you're living a life, well, guess what? There's an advanced life. You were living in a world, guess what? There is an advanced world. You thought you were just a self, guess what? You are an advanced self. You are not your name, your personality, the story you formulated. You know, sometimes when I look at the ego, I'm like, yo, man, no wonder people feel the ego leads to darkness. Because it's like, yo, man, how do I put on clothing for the day? And then how do I put on an attitude for the day that in some sense are the principles the psyche manifests through? You know, on some level, it's like whatever I do, I can't ignore that I am awareness of existence right now. Like, guys, I don't know what to say. We've built a civilization just based on our human body. Yet we are not just a human body, we're the awareness to the whole moment contained intelligently. And at some point, we're intelligently happening in ways that we cannot articulate. That means the supreme fascination I find myself right now is that we are beings that can try to seal ourselves in nouns, but the great verb is the event of everything. Truth moves us before we have moved towards truth. They're like, yo, as a Muslim, what is your view on destiny? It's just having faith that this original higher power that has created us, all of us, and the system knows what to do with the system. And it's just being like, okay, as a soul, which is an opportunity to contact the system admin. Like, guys, you might not believe this, but this is it. Every person on this planet, compared to any other species, is experiencing such a way more advanced reality that we are the only species capable to notice what is outside of ourselves precisely, and to have an ability to, for a second, not be our ego, but watch it as a component in the moment. That means it's very difficult for me to tell you, am I the self in this moment, or am I the moment itself? Like, what should ethics be based on, even? And how advanced are humans really? Like, I think I'm in a very interesting moment in history. I think, I don't know, I have this feeling. I don't know, it's just a feeling I'm saying. But I truly believe that I am, what I'm doing is at the beginning of the era of the arrival of the divinely genius. The human species, I think it's starting from now. Not just from now, because I'm saying I'm saying it started. The divinity of the intelligence in the world you're in. The world is different than you. It behaves different than you. Yet if you latch on to the meaning only you create for it, then what is it? Life is so complex, so advanced. We need to open our eyes and just realize the values. Do you know? That means one thing, if I could go back in time, every classroom that I was bored waiting for the teacher to finish and go to recess, I would be like, hey man, who says this is this? Do you know? That means, how are we accepting reality, and how are we conscious of what is an intent based on survival and one is an intent based on opportunity? If I was in the presence of like an army, or somehow they're like, yo, what's your opinion? They like, because if like, I don't think I wouldn't lead anybody, because to lead people is to become responsible for them. But if I was to somehow contribute to how humanity can advance and build an advanced civilization, it has to just come from the hilarious realization that why isn't it already here yet? That means I think 2025 was the year where our minds had received greatness, but our bodies were like, why isn't it here yet? Do you know what I'm saying? It's the discovery of how far human intelligence can go. And you know what's the common denominator between secular fascination for the origin of reality and religious fascination for the origin of reality? It's just that it's fascinating how design arose in space. This always fascinates me. It's as if, like, since a kid, I've always felt like there's been a geometric language to existence that connects to the subjective realms. That means it's the ability of our brain to see shapes outside, but to be able to remember those shapes internally and reproject new modalities. So our mind is behaving like a being that's seeing everything around it and then constantly trying to expand as if there's something within the human being that's like, yo, man, I have to go explore that uncharted territory. Our souls have a sort of explorer's will. Right, there has to be a better song. Let me see. Okay, I haven't heard this in years. This song takes me into a very fascinating state. Because, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know who you are, but I'm speaking to you, but don't think I'm just doing this for you. I'm a little bit more selfish than that. When I give these talks, I wonder who has done this before. I ask myself which human on planet Earth has decided to give 10,000 talks, and the talks are constantly wondering about how is existence existing. And we come to the realization of the vastness of reality, and they're like, yo, man, what would you prefer more than, like, an infinite library of information? And I'd be like, yo, man, it's all about greater reality. The caterpillar was a genius. Do you know the caterpillars figured it out? Enlightened insects. Insects that, in the acceptance of the defeat of their inefficient selves, they found their efficient selves. We are souls in the moment, and that's what I thought only. I think it took me like up to the year 2023 to be like, okay, to be like, okay, there is something way more intelligent than me going on here. And that's when the idea of destiny becomes beautiful. It becomes like suddenly the same feeling somebody gets when they open the hood of a car, like, an advanced engine. What you're seeing is like, a collection, a set of complex relationships, and how they're in some sense leading to meaning. When we look at planet Earth, what we find is that it is a series of realities instantaneously connected by momentarily being, right? So on some level, when we, how would I say this? Our bio, like, if somebody's like, why am I surviving in this world? And then that person asks themselves, it's because there's a value here. And what is the value of being a subjectively, simulated self in an objectively unknown place? And what do we do with the massive storytelling, simulation, and like call it the linguistic simulation? Like, what do we do with the linguistic simulation? And when the species reaches the edge of the I call it the language threshold. What does that mean? That means at some point your attention to reality will discover that how it has kept reality is not all of reality. This is where the soul matures beyond any sort of possibility to be a narcissist. Because, ladies and gentlemen, this whole time we've been wondering about success. but it's all based on where your attention is. It's as if, like, for a religious person, is the world more important, or is how we were present in front of the ultimate presence more important? My greatest dream is to create some advanced, like, research headquarters where every day of, like, my life I'm there, and with the most advanced people trying to, the whole point of it is to try to find the original earth, to truly see where the edge of meaning is in front and behind our eyes. It's all about organized initiatives and vision. They're like, yo, man, how do you become a good leader? It's like, buddy, the leader is the being that has seen the furthest. That's it. That's how they can lead, you know? I have asked myself often, hey, soul, what are you doing here in this world? And a part of me's been like, man, is it just like self-exist and then leave? Or is there, like, the same way I'm responsible for how I'm being a self in existence, I must expand the horizons of my awareness so that I can become responsible for the destiny of my species? I see this as the only path. I'm talking to all those people in the world who feel normal. All normal people. And do you know what it is? It's all we're behaving in a space-time continuum. And being religious or not is all about what level of intelligence you consider is present in the reality. They're like, why didn't the atheist and theist get along? Because one of them considered the context of reality was empty, and the other one considered it's full beyond imagination, beyond imagining. It's as if, like, we have to ask ourselves, you know, there's this theory, like, what you identify as yourself is all the layers of experience, and the way people are growing actually is like you live a day, and then tomorrow you wake up and you live a different kind of day. However, the emotions of yesterday are still present today. Do you know? It's about, I think, how we value ourselves, and is it possible to value ourselves as simulated beings correctly in this simulated divine surveillance testing zone? I don't know, but I think it's not about God intentionally decided this to not be a world of clones, in the sense that every person's fingerprint DNA is different. So it's not trying to make everybody into clones behaviorally. That's weird. It's about everybody realizing the context to the human story was much deeper, and now what God means is that the greatest witness is witnessing us right now. It's like the original truth is watching us right now. How would we behave? If truth is watching us, what can happen? And honestly, for me, I'm like, okay, there's a very fascinating reference here to the theological view that God commanded man into existence, and then commanded man to say all the divine names, which means to know everything. Do you know? And then man performed this in front of all of God's creation, and God's like told all of its creation to bow. It's as if God created something that had never existed before in such a way, exactly, and so it was as if like it was the introduction of a new archetype on a heavenly scale. And so man is an entity that has performed and the reality has bowed. And I think something common in the divine command of every soul on earth is that we want to do the greatest we can. That means imagine there was a button and you press this button and you got to experience every moment of your life in the most advanced possible way, realizing this whole time every moment could have been seen in so many different ways. And when you look at human history in some sense from a kind of witnessing aerial view, you realize it's just behavior. People on this part of the planet behave this way. This is what they think normal is. People on the other part of the planet, that's what they think their normal is. They're in a world that they can't fully process, so they lash on to the symbolism they find in front of them, but they don't question it whether the symbolism in front of them is the best option. And so I think in the future, I think I wrote this in my sci-fi somewhere, but it was like the whole point of it is that in the future, people are not going to be able to make mistakes. And they're going to look at 2025 and they're going to be like, yo, guys, those guys are the mistake era. They didn't have advanced AI giving them the greatest options, the unmistaken options. To be a human being is like you're living multiple lives at the same time. How you synchronize them is by truly wondering about the context of reality and then finding that value. To be honest, something nobody has said, but I'll say it simply. All these human beings around you are waking up and they're like, what value do I move towards? That's it. That's it. That's what being human is. It's the search for greater value. Who are we kidding? Everybody is acting in the presence of themselves, in others, society, civilization. And guess what? Civilization is an action in the presence of that which originated reality. That means people should not talk about the idea of God unless every day they wake up and they realize that they are inside a simulated system and the system admin has divine administrative management over everything. That means it's like, yo man, I could have whatever ego, but the system admin selects the outcome. And what does that mean? That means the more advanced you become as a being, the more you wonder about the source of power, and you realize the source of power is beyond the box of human belief. And you're like, then what? And that's when you truly, it's like, what was the end of following the truth? The believers realized the original was never false. It's not about free bodies, free minds, free souls. It's about whatever the soul can do, and that is to notice its origin. Whoever you are, whatever you are as a being, if you open your eyes in a world, what is the protocol? Where am I? What am I? What is this? And when your mind wanders and engages with the reality you find yourself in, at some point you realize the brain is constantly generating conclusions. And so right now we're in 2025. I wouldn't be surprised if the future generations are all being raised with the sense that I know everything, I know everything, I know everything. Everybody's subconsciously acting omnipotent or not potent, omni-knowing, omniscious, And I'll be like, okay, a species obviously at the brink of cultural change, like human cultures are still based on like Earth. You don't understand. There's going to come a time, I don't know if I'm going to be alive to see this, but suddenly astronomy is going to infuse with modern culture. and the stars that are going to become a part of our lives in ways that we never thought were possible. The system admin is providing an opportunity, and multiple lives are being lived. Like right now, I'm living a physical life, a physiological life. Right now, the way this physiological life is being managed is through a psychological life. That psychological life is the ability of my brain as an intelligence to formulate reality into anything at all in the middle of nowhere. It is the realization of, how would I say it? It's as if, how did the greatest scholars begin? They became too honest. And honesty means that you're in the presence of truth. So, as a simulated entity, what are your choices? You're either looping simulated realities, or you are originally moving reality. You know, it's the fascination of all the ways the moment could have gone forth, even before people, parallel universe theory, the ability to wonder about what else could happen was there. That's what survival was. We saw ahead. There's so many advanced humans, you know, and it's not like a matter of like, man, I wished I could have lived like that being, you know. I've reached that point where I'm like, yo, every person, there's 8 billion versions of human beings, and then now what? It's constantly about treating your own life as a vehicle. I want you to imagine that your life and your mind and the way you've lived so far, if this was some Japanese anime, is like some sci-fi like robotic suit. I want you to imagine that your ego, or who you think you are right now, I want you to imagine if it was a robotic suit. Like, we have AI that you can kind of go explain your personality and be like, yo man, ChatGPT, what would be a robotic suit picture of like my, you know, ego? But I'm saying, I want you to imagine that you're inside a giant robot shaped in a certain way, right? That means you're inside a suit, okay? The ego is the suit of your human intelligence. Right now, I'm playing a different game compared to the average human being, because I've come here acting as purely the archetype. I am kind of like that person who's like, okay, I need to have a strategy for physical life, and the strategy to my inner life is that it has noticed the higher life, and so to reach the higher life, one must notice the higher. And when I notice the higher power, I realize why we are truly like lower power. It's so much more advanced. And so, what is the protocol then? The protocol then is that, okay, the physical life is being lived in accordance to some sort of vision of power. That means some force is animating the life that is the living human being. Now, to wonder about the source of power, that means I've wondered about it in the sense of like, yo, man, in the show Dragon Ball Z, when I was a kid, I'm like, yo, there's a character measuring power levels. And I was like, how would I measure my own power levels? Right? Like, that question came up to me. You know, what it came up with when I was younger, and I had come to the conclusion is that the power level is based on where the power is originating. It's not per se based on training really hard, but it's about where is the power arising from. And is the power on the level of natural law where egos battle it out? Or is it on the level of divine command where you're not, reality is not suffering anymore, it is destiny's occurrence? It is the presentation of the possibility of what you were while you were. To be advanced in a changing world is to notice that, okay, Everybody's being born, they're telling themselves a story, and then they're trying to fit into a story that is like the society of external reality, but internally they have to always wonder about who they are. And they're like, yo, what is the truth? But in reality, to tell you the truth, you realize that you're a self here, okay, and there's a world here. Like those are like kind of like facts. But the other thing about it is that there is a known self and there's an unknown self, and the known self was a way simulated in the unknown self's world. That means in an unknown, changing world, we human beings are like, yeah, man, this is Earth. That's the Milky Way galaxy. This is the story we tell ourselves, and that's it. And don't bother us. It's like, what the F kind of like, you know, we like, to be honest, the maturity our species needs is to become responsible for the stars, that communicated to us. Everything for a religious person is God's will, okay? And it's all about seeing, what was I destined for? This question finds me, but there's nothing I can do. It's as if they tell me, hey, on this planet Earth in these 33 years, have you experienced, how many type of lives have you experienced? And I'll be like, externally just like one life, right? But internally, all the different ways I've looked at the moment can be considered as lives of their own. That means, who does the vision belong to? And religion is for those people that have discovered the limitations of self. And the higher power is the self of reality. So for me, it's as if I'm like, if I have kids in the future and the kids are like, Dad, what are everybody on this planet doing? I'd be like, son, daughter, wife, everybody on this planet is trying to find the original Earth as a simulated being. Every being knows deep down we're inside a simulation, and what I'm trying to explain to you is that the way beyond this simulation is not by human will. It's by becoming conscious of the system admin, and then your walk, that's when every day you don't just wake up looking for signs of divinity. Divinity is the presence of reality. It's not about thinking what's best. It's about witnessing the presence of the moment. Where is it leading now? Why was I here? Why such geometry? Why such unique perspectives? Why 8 billion ways to look at the world, yet one world to advance? That means it's like 8 billion designers, and the whole cosmos and the creator are like, okay, humanity, let's see what you can design. We are the architect of history the moment we were born. And there's two ways of looking at life. We're simulated entities, like we're inside a simulation. The other way to look at life is know what everything you see in the moment is real, and you can live that way. But the question is, always think about what is the limits of the self that your attention identifies. I'm trying to say, those who play the greater games of life, they are doing it in the presence of greater intelligence. God is another way of saying, we didn't create this world. It has a system admin. It has a host. Religion has been how they're like, okay, the host exists. What now? And science is pretty much like, hey man, I don't know about a host, but I'm like I totally agree. We're all in some random world right now, you know. And so it is very important that the species unites over its fascination. And they're like, oh my God, how was world peace on Earth achieved? There was just this broadcast made, hey, every human being alive on the planet, relax. And as a species, we're trying to right now figure out how do we truly value the human being. And it is now time for a grand human story. Because the evolution of the depth of advanced intelligence for the species, it's as if they were like, yo man, press this button and everybody on the planet becomes advanced, or just press this button and you're going to see an advanced civilization where the people aren't advanced. Like, I'll be like, it's all about how the system admin commanded the journey of our eyes that have appeared now to see it. We are alive now in the world. It is as surreal as a dream. They're like, yo man, what's like more deeper than a dream? I'm like, reality. Like, what is it? Who is it real to? Like, when I look at it, it's like we go to a museum and how come in a museum it's normal for one person to look at a painting and cry like that's beautiful, and another person to look at that painting and laugh and be like, this is the most ridiculous thing I've seen, do you know? And so what does that mean? Why is it okay in a museum for one person to laugh at a painting and another person to cry? But when it comes to what is reality, we don't realize, wait a minute, sure, we both see the same Eiffel Tower, for example, right? Or the same moon and sun. But on some level, what it means to us is our own life's journey so far. So I'm pretty much saying, yo, everybody's in their own self simulation. They have to step out of that self simulation, realize that the species has to simulate into a unified way, and it's all about the awareness and the ability of presence in the moment. Reality is all about presence. And on some level, I'm not trying to tell you, like, for me, if you're like, yo man, are you in the presence of the system admin all the time? I think what I am as a being is just like I wake up and energy levels decide capable action. That's pretty much it. Life is honestly like a training ground here. They're like, wake up every day and advance the same things. There's something so incredible about the metaphor of the ego that flied beyond the branch of its reality, and saw all realities at the same time. Human beings are fascinated by the unconditional. Why are people like, so many people like the Superman archetype? Unconditional strength, no way. So do you see, the unconditional fascinates humanity? For example, maybe me as a human being actually like trying to give 10,000 talks, maybe that might fascinate some people, I don't know. It's like, well, what inspired you to give 10,000 talks? I was bored of how existence was looping. Novelty has to express itself in the sense of realizing where the greatest expression is. Like, for me, when I wake up, it's not just me being like, okay, what are my power levels? How is my awareness empowered in the moment? It's more like being like, okay, I have entered the simulation again. And I have entered that moment where energy, in some sense, converts into experience through action. There is no right answer, let me tell you why. Because the world is an imperfect place. They're like, yo man, give me a perfect answer in an imperfect place. And when I say imperfect, it's imperfect when you look at it from man upwards. But when you look at it from the up, when it's like we may fail, but when God looks at it, God never made a mistake. It's like faith till the end of time, that there are limits to the human intelligence, But it doesn't mean the limitless presence of the original being is not there. Existence is empowered right now. Well, how is everything being everything right now? That means I could understand, all right, I'm eating food, surviving and existing, but how is existence existing? And it is so instantaneous that no verb can define it and no noun can be it. The truth of divinity is the realization that you're inside a commanded universe, and in this commanded universe, it is instantaneous. There is no explanation. That means God did not did not go through a process and create man. God commanded man to exist, and man existed. God did not create the soul in the sense of like it had a process. It was God commanded the soul's existence. The original power is so mighty that we are not born in a world that we are the most powerful ones. That's only in the limits of the self-simulated life. Do you understand? It's this cool moment where maybe these talks of mine are like these underground kind of like re-theorizations of how reality is being kept real rather than what is real is actually beyond the human archetype. And so we have a species here that requires collective management. And it's like the bees and the ants are like, they're like, yo, guys, what are you doing? Kind of like begin building your advanced civilization. Because I have asked myself if I could help everyone, what would be the most genius way to build an advanced civilization? And my maverick mind was like, yo, man, I think the most genius thing that a genius can do is in some sense turn the world into geniuses. I want like a constant command in all cultures and civilization that you're in the presence of the higher power. You're in the presence of truth. So every day you must realize that you are in some sense an ability to, you're like a user with system admin privileges of being able to every day being like, okay, it's not about knowing who I am in an unknown world. It's more about like, okay, how is intelligence present? And for me right now giving this talk, yes, right now I'm not sitting in a car in a planet in the middle of nowhere. I am in the presence of the higher power because the higher power is the moment. That means in Islam, all existence is praising the system admin even before human beings exist. Human beings could formulate it, could find the view. It is about the great effort of our species which moves beyond the personal dimensions of life. When I give these talks, I honestly, even though I don't think like no like when I give these talks, I'm like, okay, let's say there was a chance that this moment where I'm giving this talk, everybody on the planet could hear it. What would that mean? And in my mind, I was like, okay, that would no longer be my personal preference, and it would require the ability to look at the global situation and then wonder about what is the greatest strategy to go forth. So it's as if like getting serious about reality, looking at 8 billion human beings on the planet, wondering about how our decisions will shape the future generations. So what sort of game are 8 billion human beings playing right now in the presence of the system admin? Right? So there's moderators in this reality. There's so many ways reality can be formulated and shaped. The reason they call thinking, like another way they talk about it is articulation, is because in some sense it's kind of like, or let's say you're formulating your ideas, that means you're giving form to vision. But what is really going on and what communication is how the inner life and the outer life, due to their different nature of occurring, render the experience of the soul in the moment as multidimensional. So right now, it's not just like a body that is making noise. There's some sort of intelligence that is organizing these sentences that I'm communicating. Now, who owns the organization of consciousness is another way of saying who is the owner of energy, who is the owner of the existence's design, who is the owner of the arrival of consciousness in whatever moment in history. Like we are present now as human beings that are conscious, that can communicate. The internet, they said it's the nervous system of, the species. Like, I'm telling you, it's like this. It's like you wonder about the greatness of yourself. The system admin gives it to you. Then you wonder about the greatness of the world, and you realize this is like a wish. If this wish was to come true, or if this prayer was to come true, it requires the real conscious realization of all human beings to the greater advanced archetypes beyond the human idea. That means we are inside a story. This is the linguistic simulation, but we have to become conscious of this, be fearless, and realize how advanced every moment can be. Do you know, it's as if like you found yourself in a world great. Now, what does greatness mean? How have your eyes open to truth? And why, are some people fearless late night podcasters, being like, hey, human species, wouldn't it be nice to be in an advanced civilization right now? They're like, what incredible leadership. He just showed everybody that every moment has an advancement factor to it. Every moment. The system admin designed reality so ingeniously that divinity is the peak of genius, by the way. That means if you ask the genius what's the most greater thing than genius, they'll be like the divine. Why? Because it's not just about nature existing in a sort of mechanical way you can understand. It's that how uniquely reality happens. It's occurring whatever way we can interpret it. It's not possible to really interpret it, I find, but that force is animating reality in the sense of it's commanding existence's movement. That what I'm saying, in the same way like a person can command the movement of their thoughts or something, they can visualize things. You can command your inner realms as a soul. I'm saying how everything happens in existence is happening in the same way, but to the system admin. To be religious is when you've lived your life to a point where now you're wondering what is life. The higher power means your limits have to be accepted. I have to some degree accepted it. I'm like, okay, man, whatever. It doesn't matter how the future happens, really. It's kind of like, all right, we're being alive, and they just told you you're being tested. And you're like, okay, what do I do in this world as a soul? And you look at yourself and you wonder, okay, your body can move and then your mind can move. And on some level, there's something deeper that can decide with this based on its awareness to all design, really. I was that guy who's like, yo, everybody, let's build an advanced civilization. And then, like, I believe the system admin was like, hey, man, listen, you are not who decides reality. And then it kind of hit me. Like, I don't know how to explain it to you, but as a Muslim, I opened the Holy Quran, and I don't remember the passage exactly, but I'm a visual learner, so I'll tell you what the visuals were. The passage said, like, God could have created everybody perfectly, but God has created man as a sin to be able to do sin, because God is trying to see that how would this simulated in the format of a simulation, this soul that finds itself in the presence of its creator, of the system admin, how does it truly behave? It realizes it cannot lie. It realizes that it is a type of energy. It realizes that its perspective decides its responsibility. It realizes that the attention to the human life is on some level witnessing the commands of the divine. God to me is the unimaginable commander of manifestation that even nature's laws praise the truth. The world is alive. Like, think of it this way. From the human perspective, I'm Muslim, the system admin is beyond any form of reality, right? But and there are people who are Christian and they believe Christ was the system admin. Now, as a human, I disagree with that in this context of the simulated human reality. But God can do whatever it wants. Whatever he wants. God is capable of moving this reality in ways that it can be similar to someone pressing a delete button or someone pressing a button that updates it all. Let's hope I can find a good song to play. I really don't know what to play right now. Okay, I think this is a good one. So guys, I don't know, say something in the chat section how the talk's coming across so far. Anyways, I want to keep going. What we're capable of becomes not based on how we generate ourselves meaning. It becomes really based on what truth is before we did anything. You know, being a philosopher is like there's a room and there's a door and the room's dark, but there's a light coming from underneath the door. And the philosopher's like to everybody in the dark room, like, guys, there's a light coming from here, from this door. And people are like, no, man, everybody knows darkness so far. Don't change civilization. And the philosopher's like, man, being a philosopher is just seeing something more than others. What it really is everybody's different, of course. There's nothing to boast about, nothing to say like, I am this, you're that. Really, we're all in the presence of a power beyond us, so there's nothing we can compare that could be greater than that. If they're like, yo man, what's the point of you giving these talks? To look at life and be like, how advanced can you be? And if the future generations and the divine commander of this reality were watching, you are no longer just any person. You are created by the higher power, which means your soul has a higher value. You are affiliated with the original power as a human being. You are being tested, but what is being tested is God's creation. That means to be religious is to realize how magnificent the intelligence of how everything happens and goes forth is. In the presence of God, I am nothing. And my capability of communicating my value is like, hey, as much as when I say I'm a human being, what does that mean? To be human is to be part of the human species. It means to have an intelligence that is capable of moving in ways that it is in the presence of the unimaginable. I don't know how to tell you, but the ego, if someone's very smart, this is my theory, they get bored of how many different ways the ego can be simulated. So they actually have a psyche that in the moment is like, okay, the inner realms can move in so many different ways. There's so many ways to look at things and consider value. There's so many ways to wonder about how meaning has been linked to the shape of an existence prior to even language's creation. It is to discover the might of our species. This is, I think, the hidden dream, cultural dream of every 90s kid. Like, I was born in 1991, and, you know, as someone born in a symmetrical generation, and December, that means the last symmetrical generation. I think all of our dreams lead to being like we heard stories of greatness. And so in the same way that human beings are being tested, whether they do something good or bad, I think at the same time, if we pay attention closely, we are being tested in regards to how advanced we can be in the presence of the most advanced. You find your most advanced life by not like acting it out in a robotic way. You find something so important that it pulls you into that reality. And when I give these talks, I'm constantly trying to be on the benches, like not trying to affiliate, but really I can't, my heart moves in ways that my mind learns from. And so it's just trying to keep a sort of mythos alive in modern culture. That means they're like, yo man, was there anything like, you know, deep happening in 2025? They're like, yeah man, there were people podcasting on whether reality is a simulation or not, whether the nature of attention commands our attention to a context that is more unknown than known. And what do we do with the unknown as known entities simulated here for some time? To be honest, deep down, the soul is like, okay, I'm being here, that has a value, but what is the value of everything being here? And now that I am here, I'm not just being here, the system admin is here, the origin, that means the cause is aware of the effect. We are being simulated as an effect. What should the simulated effect do in the presence of the divine reality? How can movements be judged dualistically? Mankind is being ushered into states of mind where he must find grace guiding him through it. The future generations are blessed if we chose to be patient and gently advanced. That means everybody relaxes, and the United Species Council has always been there. It's like what else can you do? You advance yourself, then you advance your species, then your species advances the world, and then the most advanced world wonders about the most advanced power, but it actually has to notice the most advanced power before it does everything for it to be done correctly. And it's as if the ego can formulate in any way it wants, but the soul knows truth is present prior. God was present before the world was. Do you know what I'm saying? The simulation is simulated in the presence of truth. The soul is the original command. They're like, yo man, what was your earliest memory? The system admin commanded me to be here. The system admin commanded my attention to decide this way so far. I am not just the work of myself. I am the witness of the destiny that has found me. So here I am in the world. It doesn't matter what we do, because it's all been done. To be a human being is to be a simulated existential entity, realizing you're simulating your own experiential meaning to this existential reality. And then once you realize it's all been your own meaning, you relax and you actually wonder about how unknown the world is, and you truly study the nature of reality and the notions of spirituality being like this kind of theater, or religion being that kind of theater. It is all realizing that there's a system admin in the room. You thought you were alone when the creator was always witnessing the creation. God is great, so greatness created us. We are the expressions of greatness. Let that be clear. And advance humanity fearless. We are fearless. Why? Because we are the creation of the greatest system admin. That means if extraterrestrials land on Earth and they want to fight us, like some graceful human beings are going to go up to the extraterrestrials and be like, guys, we believe in the higher power, the creator of reality beyond any form and shape. And if you do something unethical, the mistake will be your own simulated flaw. Humanity avoided an invasion because God was present in the room. To be honest, for me, if they're like, what are higher beings doing in this planet? They're all trying to get close to the truth. That's the higher game. All the saints, all the holy men, the prophets were selected by truth. And now you are in this great system called, the world of man. A humanity looking at the stars, wondering why its culture is still limited to, the surface of a unknown world. When does it end? How many days loop? At what point does the soul get tired of it all? At what point is the meaning that reality has had so far not enough? And how are people living lives not wondering about how advanced we can be, when in our inner realms it's always in the scene? God has created man with an ability to wonder about reality internally. God has created human beings in such a way that we can wonder about what the future would look like. We are the only species on this earth that is capable of such advanced awareness to that which is beyond it and different to it. In the presence of truth, perhaps the only way to life is you have to live it truly. You have to care for all the values. You have to carry it like you're the champion returning home. You are the champion of noticing that manifestation was not alone. That greatness monitored all failures as if they could never fail. Because if you truly believe in the system admin, then you cannot doubt how the system goes forth. A freedom from the ego. The ego, in some sense, no longer required. You're noticing how divine intelligence is the moment. Yet it's fine. It's not as a relationship of an ego with a story. It is you smiling and taking a deep breath and being like, all right. The most fascinating mystery is how it's all here, and let's see how it happens. Mr.Within, this archetype, I'm just saying, it's like all of it is just like, guys, a species is present right now, and shall we see how advanced it can be in the presence of the most advanced? And I'll end the talk here because because in the presence of the endless, it's incomparable. I am a human being on earth, and I'm just saying it's not an empty room. There's the presence of greater truth. To be conscious of greater truth is that reality is true in a great way. The advanced civilization is the destiny of a species wondering where else, it's the next up, it's the ultimate update. So in order to build an advanced civilization, we need advanced human beings. In order to have advanced human beings, we need human beings that have noticed the advanced power. This advanced power is the faith beyond it. It's like the faith in the causes and effect. It's like the simulated noticed the original before they were no longer here. That's a fascinating. It's fascinating because the moment the soul is in the presence of the system admin, all that is unnecessary was never there. In the presence of greatness, there is only greatness. Thank you for listening. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful, the greatest. Al-Kabir.